This was a clip, the great Dave Cullinane sent this to me yesterday, actually, and I very much enjoyed this. Not the first time Jon Stewart has gone out to defend the likes of Joe Rogan, but I do think ever since the election, the liberals have talked a lot about who is the next Joe Rogan. I mean, the most sane person from that side seems to be Jon Stewart. Like when he talks about this stuff, it's actually like realistic. He approaches it in a measured, calm way for the most part. We talked about the stuff with Colbert. I thought he was off on that, but like Colbert's his boy. But for the most part, when he talked, like he defended Tony Hinchcliffe and he's defended Rogan before. I think he makes a lot of sense when he talks about these topics, even though more left-leaning liberal interviewers really want him to trash Rogan. So they always try to lead him there. They think, hey, maybe we'll have a Mark Maron interview. But Jon Stewart is not bitter and he's not promoting anything. So unfortunately, they didn't get out of him. Who is, I forget the gentleman's name. I think it's in the tweet I sent you. What's this guy's name? The interviewing Jon Stewart?
Shit, I have no idea. Hold on, let me check.
We'll play the clip and you can look it up.
Okay.
But someone
John, you've been on Rogan a couple of times?
Yes.
What did you think of that experience, being on Joe Rogan?
I enjoyed being on Rogan. I think he's an interesting interviewer. There are right-wing, weaponized commentators whose sole purpose is to manipulate things to the benefit of the Bannon Project or the Project 2025. Rogan's not that guy.
What is that guy? How would you describe
that guy
him?
is a curious comic who fell into this thing that got fucking enormous, maybe doesn't... has opinions all over the political spectrum, but has tendencies that people on the left does not fit the aesthetic. He's a hunter.
I mean, in fairness, he's had people on who are kind of Nazi curious. That's not good.
I've interviewed Kissinger. And he was carpet bomb curious. Yeah. I don't know what to say.
Thank you, Jon Stewart. Jesus Christ. I've never understood. And he goes on later in the interview. If you're interested in this, you should check it out because it's longer than just this clip that we're playing. But like he goes on to say, like he said, I had Donald Rumsfeld on my show, and he goes, I lost more sleep over how I would approach that interview than he did the entire war. And we know what all that effort did is after it was done, he emailed me and said, hey, that was a lot of fun. So, like, Donald Rumsfeld didn't give a fuck. There's this idea now that interviews are going to change everything. Like, if Joe Rogan had Trump on, what he should have done is stop him from being Donald Trump. Joe Rogan doesn't have that power. I know he's got a lot of listeners, but, like, that it's just not realistic. There's this idea that if you talk to someone, you're for everything they stand for, that you need to push back and change them, where if Rogan had Kamala Harris on, and I just watched some Kamala clip where she's like, well, ultimately, I'm glad I didn't do Joe Rogan because he ended up voting for Trump. And it's like, well, what the fuck? What does that have to do with anything? Who gives a shit? The idea is Rogan would have given Harris the same interview he gave Trump. He's not a hold your feet to the fire guy. It would have been softballs. Now, there are some things where maybe he would have been harder on Harris just because of the nature of Joe Rogan's beliefs, but it wouldn't have been this intense Frost-Nixon interview, you know?
Yeah, the guy's name is David Remnick.
Yes, I knew it was familiar, but it didn't stick in my memory.
Like, it's very easy to castigate those where we're like, but he had an opinion a few years back that's, corrosive.
But the difference is when he was carpet bomb curious, you didn't say, oh, yeah, that's awesome. And what happens with Rogan sometimes is he'll hear somebody that's on the dangerous end of the spectrum, and he'll just kind of soak it in.
And I think this is a great point. And it's whoever job who thinks that information is dangerous to fight to get their point of view out there to counter what they think is misinformation. You can't just deputize people to say he should have known better and he should have prosecuted that point.
But the reality is, John, is that...
And I'll add to Jon Stewart's point, if that was Rogan's thing, like if he was an in-your-face gotcha type of interviewer, Trump probably wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? Like he probably wouldn't get the amount of guests that he has if it was constantly owning them. Like if it was bringing up things that they said wrong and hammering them on it, Rogan probably wouldn't have the amount of guests that he has and the level of guests that he has because they don't want to go into that environment. But it's the same for everyone. It was the same when he had Bernie Sanders or Andrew Yang on. He didn't fucking hammer them on things he didn't agree with. It was just an open conversation. So, like, if you want that, Mark Maron, when you had the president on, why didn't you fucking grill Obama the way you want politicians to be grilled if you have to have them on? Or if Anthony Jeselnik has such a problem, start an interview show where you fucking get in these guys' faces and tell them what's wrong with what they're doing. I don't think you would get those guests is the issue. And like David Remnick doesn't have the audience that Joe Rogan has. And these guys are mad that they would do something else with that influence. You know, it would be like me getting mad at Abbott Elementary because that's not a show I want to watch. It's like, well, that's successful. Don't watch it. Don't participate in it. That's what I've done with that show. I'm like, why can't it be Seinfeld? It's like, well, because it's not. Different people are writing it, you know?
It might be my job or the New York Times job or even your job, but I don't have the audience that Joe Rogan does.
Then get it.
Yeah,
then
go
find
get
people
it.
who do. Then go on that show. Then do those things. Like that is. It's not acceptable to just say, "Well, I don't like what he does." Then do it better. Beat them at their own game. It's not enough to just complain that that guy got a platform and don't platform that guy. There's no one in this world right now that isn't platformed. And my biggest frustration, honestly, with a lot of scientists is they all go, RFK, oh, he's so fucked up. That's terrible information. Oh, okay. What's the information? Nothing. Where are they? Get out there. Fight.
That was my biggest problem during
John,
during COVID and stuff. My biggest problem was people were slamming Rogan for COVID talk and vaccine talk. And I listened to some of those episodes with Peter McCullough and Robert Malone, vaccinologists. He was talking to doctors, and people with my level of intelligence were like, why is Joe Rogan spreading misinformation? And it's like, I know about as well as you do is if it's misinformation, but he's talking to doctors about it. We're just fucking morons sitting in our basement yelling about it on the internet. So I think Jon Stewart makes such a great point when he says, like, there's not a human being that isn't platformed right now. And if David Remnick wasn't so dug in on his opinions that he'd be willing to go on Joe Rogan, I don't know if David Remnick would get booked or not. Maybe now he would. But like if someone like that, if Mark Maron pushed to get on that show, and this is what I mentioned last week, and I think the best example is a comedian named Ronan Hirschberg, who I like and I think is a very funny guy. But he had a lot of jokes about Joe Rogan and Joe Rogan's shitty politics and how he should handle interviews and all the same stuff that David Remnick seems to feel. And Ronan was a guest on Joe Rogan, I want to say a year ago, maybe, pushed back on none of Joe Rogan's points, didn't bring anything up that he disagreed with Joe Rogan on, just went in there to promote the special that he had and left. And then went back on Instagram and continued posting jokes that were about what a terrible guy Joe Rogan is, and would go on podcasts and talk about what a shithead Joe Rogan is. And when I lose respect when I see stuff like that, because I'm like, you had a chance. If you think Joe Rogan is so awful and doing all this stuff, you had a chance to appeal to him with that. And if he's guilty of what you say he's guilty of, which is a fair criticism that Rogan does do, if you think when Joe Rogan has guests on, he's guilty of just going, oh yeah, interesting, that's a good point, then you'd be able to get your point across untouched. You'd be able to get that across to him and just have Rogan stare back at you and go, oh, interesting. You know? So, like, that's my issue. And guys like Stavros and Dan Soder are guilty of that too, where it's like, and it's what we talked about with Santino. It's where I think Schultz made a good point. People called Schultz a Rogan ass kisser, which I'm sure there's some of that going on where he wants Rogan's approval. But I thought he made a good point when he talked about Andrew Santino, where, like, be critical all you want of Joe Rogan. You should be critical. If you disagree with him, you should voice that if you feel strongly enough about it. But what you have to do when you're booked on that show is bring it up. You can't be guilty of what you're accusing him of and just go nod and go, yes, Joe, absolutely. when deep down you're simmering with anger because you disagree with him so much and you think he's a danger to society. So like all these people that are mad at Joe Rogan for being a danger, do something about it. And I think Jon Stewart makes the perfect point there.
Go to blindmike.net for everything Blind Mike. Look at me. I did it. Krager's did it.